We can just continue from there. That's not a problem. So essentially, we'd kind of caught up entirely about Khadija, and we were just talking about Sauda. And I'll get my slides back up in a second, but it is this idea that um, they understood who they were and what their needs were, and what they had to give to others. And one of the other things that Sauda was really aware of was that this was a home with two young daughters. So she raised them, but she also realized that the Prophet ﷺ was upset sometimes. You know, the year that the Khadija passed away was called the year of sorrow. That's how upsetting it was for him. And so I want to ask a question to everyone, and then inshallah, I will link it back. The question really I wanted to ask is, does anyone have any idea what the suicide rate is for men today? So out of 100,000 people, how many do you think commit suicide a year? 70,000. Okay. The male suicide rate is in every 100,000 men. So I'm not too sure how many men there actually are in the UK. Someone could pop that in the chat if they know from the top of their head. 17 of them will commit suicide. And compared to women, that's 3 times more. So for every 100,000 women, 5.6. And for men, it's 17.1. It's horribly, horribly high. You know, in our society, men are not happy. They're not happy at all. And so I want to link this back to the life of Sauda and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sauda, there was an incident where she was reported to have seen on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face that he was looking a bit pale and upset. So she told him a joke. She basically said to him that, you know, yesterday I was praying behind you and you were in prostration for so long that I felt like I might have a nosebleed. And that made the Prophet ﷺ smile so much that he showed his molar teeth. He smiled at, you know, the idea of her there in prostration, worried about having a nosebleed. And I think that's so important, being able to bring that lightness to a home. And more so than that, you know, as women, we need to recognize our role in bringing happiness to the family home. Genuinely bringing happiness to the family home. Because when we look at the stories of Khadija and Sauda, may Allah be pleased with them, this is what they were able to do, bring peace and to bring happiness. And it's a skill. It's a skill, because how many of us are you know, how many of us punish the men in our life for not doing things exactly the way we want them to do? How much pressure are we putting them on? And look at the phrasing of this. She saw in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face that he was sad, and then she made him happy and made him laugh. Do we even have the ability to recognize when the men in our life are unhappy just by looking at their face? This is all of these things that we're learning about. They're all skills. They just need to be practiced, they're skills. And so this is just a quote from the one charity that deals with suicides. And the person says, you start wondering, am I up to standard? Am I good enough? That's how it starts. And if you say it enough times, you start to believe it. So obviously from this, I'm not saying that the Prophet ﷺ was clinically depressed or anything of that nature. I'm just saying, look at Sauda's ability to lift his mood and to be in tune with that. And when we live in a society where so many men are upset and sad and lonely and depressed, and the suicide rate is that high, they're not numbers, sisters, they're actual people who take their lives. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us such a high position in the family home that we have so much ability to alter the mood and the feel of the home, then we should utilize that, inshallah. And so these are the early pillars. And that was what today's talk was about. These are the two mothers of the believers who supported the Prophet ﷺ in the early stages of his prophethood. So these, and I think that's really what I want to get across today, that they were there at the beginning. Khadija didn't even see the fruits of her labor, but there's something beautiful and blessed about being the first. It's lonely, it's hard, you have to be brave, you have to look the situation in the face and put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then you are the first, you are the pioneer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst the pioneers of goodness. Ameen. If anyone has anything they want to pop in the chat, please do now, because we're just tying up the session. But essentially, Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining. Again, this is UK Islamic Mission's New Muslim Care series. So there's a few talks after this. Same time next week, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to enact upon what we have learnt, and make it easy for us to be bearers of the truth, and help us to be brave and to put our trust in him in difficult situations. And for all of those and for all of us who are there and who have faced some sort of loss or difficulty or ill health, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease the way to goodness for us. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.